I had no idea there was supposed to be a show tonight or something. I thought we were just going to get on and talk. First off, welcome back. Good evening. Welcome back to Generation Movies. My name is J.W. Colwell, back from beyond wherever swamp I am down in Florida. I am joined, as always, by my good friend and an amazing film critic, Rich Drees. Welcome back, Rich. And you know,
my friend, it's good to be back here on a Monday night, shooting the shit about the movie.
Yeah, it's good to be back. This show tonight is going to be a little bit non-traditional for everybody who's watching. So a couple things. Let's talk about the summer of 2023 for me, which is it's going to be dominated for me the rest of my life with a health scare. So at the end of June, I got sick on a Thursday. I ended up in a hospital on a Saturday. Had sepsis and a couple.
That sounds like
the
worst Cure song ever.
Yeah, it was just it wasn't a beach. It was a very good hospital. It took very good care of me. But I've had to deal with it the rest of the summer. I'm almost 100% back. But it is better to get right back on the horse and try to get going. I am very sorry to everybody who is looking forward to all the stuff we're going to do this summer. I was really looking forward to doing a lot of movies this summer. I have not, but it doesn't change the fact I've been at home watching everything that's going on this summer. So this episode is going to be Rich and I discussing the news from this past, hanging out, chit-chatting, and I promise we will get back to what we do best, which is breaking down movies from the generation that we grew up with next week. But this week is basically the summer 2023 hits, misses, and health scares. And mine was a big one. If my wife didn't take me to the hospital the day I did, the day she made me go, there was a very good chance that Rich would be hosting Generation Movie by himself. And not a lot of people know that.
Dude, don't scare me like that. Because no one needs and B.
Well, just I can't think of the rampant ego of Rich by himself. No, that's totally false. But what I was saying is, I want to thank everybody that stuck with me and checked in on me. Joe Ridgely in particular. As a matter of fact, there are some people in our saying hi. Welcome back, guys. Thank you, Tim. We appreciate you. Good evening, Tim. Friends. Ken McKernan. I missed you guys this summer. I've been in a kind of in a deep well in Florida. And Joe Ridgely, good evening, gentlemen. Great to have you back. It is great to be back. And again, we will get back to the Generation Movie way of doing things next week. And we will tease.
Quick,
something big later.
Yes. Quick note, if you were hoping we were going to eventually at some point be reviewing Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we will get to that. Probably not before the end of the year, though. We kind of have our ideas mapped out all the way through December. We have our next 6 weeks.
Yeah, and they're good. They're great, actually. I think we
mention,
think you're gonna be very.
I didn't even
And
mention this to
also,
you, JW, but I'm thinking for at some point next year doing a group of movies that are legacy sequels, like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Return to Oz, The Color of Money, Wall Street
Oz the
2.
Great and Powerful, all kinds of
Yeah,
yes. I
stuff like that.
that is a fan. That is a great idea, and it's definitely something we're gonna do. Because Rich and I usually we usually come up with ideas, and both of us usually go, "Okay, that sounds great."
Yeah, and then
And what we have planned for you for August and September, and particularly October, spooky season, we think it's a little bit off the side. It's an interesting place where many people got their start in their love of horror films. So we think it's going to be really fun come October, but and also September, August, we were planning to do something funny and comedy wise, and that's where we're headed. We'll talk more later as the show progresses. We'll give you an idea where we're headed.
We'll give you
But again, yeah, this is a summer of 2023. What JW has witnessed while laid up, and very, very often talking to Rich, because Rich and I had long talks either on the phone or texting to each other like, hey, this happened. Holy shit, there's a strike. And that has to be the beginning of the talk for the summer of 2023, right? The idea that these studios are, and again, I don't care about the idea that that Tom Cruise isn't making as many movies. There are a lot of actors working in Hollywood. There are a lot of screenwriters and writers working in movies and television that we love that aren't making enough money to live. And I'll give you, I was thinking about this as a perfect, there's a show that I watched in the 2000s, in the aughts, called Suits. It's a great show. It was on USA Network. It was fantastic. It ran for 8 seasons. It did very well. It's a wonderful show. It is on Netflix, and it is having the summer of a summer. It's knocking #1. It's knocking new shows out of the box. It's been in the top 10 since it dropped in June. And you know what's interesting about that, and really should
weird little renaissance that's been amazing actually to watch. People want
and it's
episode seasons. They want these storylines and Suits.
Well, it's also like another show that's dominating this year, this summer, called Justified, Primeval City. You know what I mean? We're talking about a show that was in the 2000s and 2010s, and Justified was a tremendous show, had a number of seasons, but they brought it back this year. But the problem is, when you go to Justified on Hulu or when you go to Suits on Netflix, the people that made those shows that you're falling in love with this summer aren't getting paid. That's it. That's the thing. There's no residuals for streaming. So it's not like the old days where a show would get 7 seasons and it would go to syndication, and you and I or anybody watching the show would watch it at 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock when we got home from school. And every year they would change the shows that were in those rotations, and every year those people would get paid. That's not how it works. And so Justified, Primeval City hitting big and causing people to go back and watch Justified, Suits hitting big on Netflix. Those people aren't getting residuals. So the WGA strike and the SGA strike, it's about greed. SAG, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Writers Guild of America. I'm here to keep you honest. It's Screen Actors Guild of America. I'm so sorry. But they're not getting paid. And they're also worried about AI, which anybody should be worried about if you're paying attention to any kind of news for other reasons, like Terminator reasons, but let's not get into that. But so we're dealing with a subject where these people are getting paid. And then you have the biggest villain of the summer isn't, the hydrogen bomb in Oppenheimer or Age with Indiana Jones, or the biggest villain of the summer is David Zaslav. The man is a walking just dumb bomb. He's dumb and he's an idiot. And after this past week, 2 weeks of or 2 months, I should say, of the strikes, he made an announcement that we saved $100 million, which is the most terrible thing to say to a bunch of people on the picket line. We saved money by not paying you to do your job. It's just awful. Okay,
Great.
so
You're about 20% of the way to what these asks from the Writers Guild would cost you.
yeah, a couple things. So a couple comments. Keep up with the health. I dismissed my own. I almost didn't make it. Yes.
Yikes! Sorry to hear that, Ken.
Yeah,
Glad you're still here, though.
Be careful. I'm here too. Let's make sure we're here for Monday nights to come in the future. Joe says, love the sequel idea. Wait to see the ideas we have at the end of the show, Joe. And I think we can even announce the horror ones, but we don't know what we're doing yet. But we have an idea what we're working on.
Yeah, and people can throw in some favorites they might want us to talk about then too.
David Madison, funny. A handful of actors owe me a combined over $25,000. Fair enough. You should be paid too. Everybody should be paid, and I understand. But maybe they're not getting their residual checks to be able to pay you, so it's like it becomes a mess. And then need to revisit sci-fi show Falling Skies. Yeah, there all these shows that were on in the 2000s and the 2010s. They're all coming back, and where you're seeing the places where they're going to do reboots is shows that were hits, right? Shows that did well, and that's what you're seeing this summer. Like the idea that we might get a Suits reboot or something along those lines because of how well it's doing on Netflix is not that far-fetched. Molly Zombie. Hello, zombie with two E's. It's a very specific Molly Zombie. Like, I feel that's a very, that's something you could hang your hat on. Molly Zombie with two E's. But yeah, so that has been the dominating zombie. That's been the dominating story of the year for me. I think we're going to get to, movies doing well and movies doing poorly and movies maybe not doing as well as they think they're doing, and movies that were supposed to be written off as bombs that have churned out much bigger than anybody anticipated in a moment. But if we're talking about creators, we're talking about writers, we're talking about actors, and we're talking about this big, wide gulf, we need to figure it out. And the thing is, I love going to the movies. I haven't gone to a lot of movies this summer. It's been a rough summer for me health-wise. But movie theaters need products. It's the one thing that keeps movie theaters going is product every week, right? And this summer has been an avalanche of big movies. But we're going to get to a point where there's nothing on the shelf, and this writer strike and this actor strike is going to be I don't want to say it's going to be a death knell for theaters, but theaters already had the lasting impacts of COVID. Theaters, made it through, but some of them are in a lot of trouble, so they need to figure this out. And I'm not saying the writers and actors need to figure it out. The studios need to come to the table, and they need to come to the table and not lowball people that are giving them hit after hit after hit, especially a guy like Zaslav who's making, $150 million a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Zaslav is making more than the operational budget for Turner Classic Movies, which is about 35 to 40 million. And by the way, TCM as a channel brings in 200 million, and he still tried to slash what was going on.
Well, and if not for Spielberg and Scorsese, what was it? Yeah. Spielberg, Scorsese, and Nolan, who all called him and said, "Hey, Jagoff, leave your hands off this. This is one of the few movie historian pieces we have."
There was a great article in, I believe it was the Hollywood Reporter in the last day or two, where they talked about how, the execs at Turner Classics, they confirmed the stories that have been going around, that the execs at Turner Classics were given, you've got to slash this much out of your budget. And they looked at it and said, well, we can cut the jobs of everybody under us, or, we vice presidents in charge of the channel can fall on the sword ourselves. And that's what they did. And when people heard that, they freaked out. And, they brought back the senior vice president of programming, because he's the guy who had all the connections, for getting all the stuff that's not in the Warner library.
But the idea that we're even thinking about cutting Turner Classic Movies or TCM when it's a crazy. It's just Zaslav he's a money hungry beast. And he's the worst.
The guy knows how to do reality programming, and I'll give him that. But I don't think he quite understands a lot of the other things that are going on.
He reminds me very much of the guy that took over at Disney and had no idea how to deal with people.
Sure enough, Bob Chapek.
Yeah, just had no idea how to deal with people. But
TCM does more than just be a channel. They have their film festival. They work with the Film Foundation for restoration things. They help fund some of that stuff. In turn, those restored classics, are shown first at the TCM Film Festival. They air first on Turner Classic Movies. They do a lot to help continue and promote, a century's worth of film history.
The realization is that
their mission is so much wider than, say, the Food Network, which, no offense to the Food Network, you're fine, you're wonderful. I don't need you on the TV when I'm at the gym.
And tell me that Max hasn't gotten worse with all the stuff not being able to navigate and trying to find stuff when you have 7 different shows about people trying to rebuild a house. Don't get me wrong, but the idea that you had HBO, which was this content engine that had a pristine, like a pedigree, a wonderful pedigree from year after year after year, and then this guy comes in and just throws all his garbage on it. Now we have you can't find anything. But TCM is also the thing that you don't get when you're talking about TCM is the idea that the cultivation of film history, finding films that you love, finding older films that you love that actually tie into the movies that you made, and you realize that Steven Spielberg and Scorsese and Christopher Nolan watched all these movies that made them fall in love with movies that made me fall in love with them.
Yeah.
So, it's an incredible history engine, and to just strip mine it.
Fan, but you have no outlet to go see Greatest Show on Earth, which is the movie, as we all know now, that kind of inspired him to become a filmmaker.
Very important in The Fabelmans, which was the Best Picture nominee last year. But it's, I don't know. The Zaslav, I call him the Zaz. It's like the opposite of being the Fonz. He's the Zaz. He's just a tool that's in charge of a lot of people's livelihoods. So that's the story there. Don't. And the other thing is, I do see a lot of people on my feeds and talking to me and being like, well, these actors make so much money. Yeah, there's, 100 actors that make a boatload of money. And then there's a bunch of other actors that don't. Yeah. And the vast majority is not Tom Cruise taking $70 million for a movie, or Jack Nicholson making 90 on Batman, or it's not.
Majority aren't making $24,000 a year to be able to get their health insurance through the guild. And these are part-time jobs. They used to be able to make full-time jobs, full careers, support a full family, buy a house.
Right. We are a show that is in line with film history and also paying artists and paying creators. That's also what's part of the Indie Escape Network. So that's one of the big stories of 2023. Let's talk about movies, because finish
before we get there though. Tangentially, and this just this news just kind of broke a couple of hours ago.
But, no, I'm so sorry, I forgot about this.
I'm just going to read this right out of the Hollywood Reporter here for us. Visual effects crews at Marvel Studios filed today for a unionization election with the National Labor Relations Board, according to the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. The labor organization said that Marvel's more than 50 worker crew had signed authorization cards indicating that they wished to be represented by the union. The union in this case being IATSE. These are visual effects pros employed directly by Marvel, and they generally work in Atlanta, Los Angeles, and New York. It does not include the thousands of visual effects artists that work on Marvel movies through third-party effects vendors. Now, the last year or so, we've been hearing a lot of stories about
The
how
crunch.
the visual
The
effects crew
stress
overworked.
crunch.
Yeah,
Right.
stressed,
Overworked, underpaid, 80-hour weeks.
redoing their work over and over again, barely getting paid for all this. So I'm very happy that this is the first step. This is something I've been saying for a while too. I think when we first talked about this, I was like, these guys need to unionize. They need to, and there needs to be, for the vendors who keep getting screwed, and forced to, they
Well,
lowball their bid to Marvel, and then Marvel keeps making them redo work. There needs to be penalties built into those contracts as well. Hopefully that will come about.
And the unionization of this particular group, the stories that you've heard in the last year or so have been heartbreaking. Okay, let's see. A couple comments. Need to revisit the sci-fi show The Falling Skies. That's a great show. We had Mary. I already did that one. I'm so sorry. I'm revisiting the Dresden Files. I believe that's Joe hiding behind the Indie Escape banner. Molly said yes, so we got her name right, which is good. Tim's, I love TCM. Yeah, Tim is great. Tim is a great alerter on Facebook. For anybody who's a fan of the show, Tim will tell you what's premiering tonight at 8 o'clock almost every day.
And man, the Star stuff has been great so far.
It has been fantastic.
I can't wait till Wednesday and the Nicholas Brothers. Oh, if you've seen the clips on like TikTok or YouTube of the Nicholas Brothers tap dance duo from the
I've never seen them, but CCM gives me the ability to find them.
They're amazing.
You know what I mean?
They're absolutely amazing. So, and
that's Wednesday, you say?
That's Wednesday, all day Wednesday. Orchestra Wives, which is like with Glenn Miller. Sun Valley Serenade, which is also with Glenn Miller, and there's a couple of movies in there I have not seen of theirs. So
Glenn Miller's from Pennsylvania, isn't he? Like us.
Yes.
TCM needs to become a standalone channel, get rid of needing a cable subscription bullshit. Fair, but I think everything's headed towards, like, one of the things about Max, when you get it as a streaming service, there is a whole chunk of just TCM stuff. You can go to the TCM thing, and they have all of the retrospectives, everything all in one place. But again, I'm having trouble getting through the mire of reality shows that are just the only thing that the Zaz knows how to make.
Yeah. But it should be noted, too, that the TCM hub on Max isn't programmed by the folks over at TCM. It's the people in charge of Max throwing some stuff that they see.
Stuff.
Yeah, older films just throwing. I think it would be better curated if Turner Classics was actually involved instead of just having their name hijacked for this.
Well, everything about Max is a hijack. It's hijacking the pristine quality of HBO. It's hijacking the TCM. It's hijacking Warner Brothers. It hijacks everything so we can have. We built our house, and maybe you want to buy it if we make a fish tank that you like.
30-day flipping a drive-in diner.
Yeah, 30-day flip your wife or whatever the fuck this stuff is. It's just bad. Okay, we're on the show though, so let's talk about the summer movies, and I'm gonna put up a list of winners, hits, I should say, and we're gonna talk about each of them. And I don't want to get anybody riled up, but I have a joke in it, and it's a joke that Rich and I have discussed, and we have to talk about. And it's got to be something we got to look at, and we will discuss it in perpetuity. I think we're going to discuss it to death, to be honest. Okay, so hold on. I'm just getting back to being a host again, kicking all the stuff, moving stuff around. It was really funny. Rich came in earlier tonight, caught me. I wasn't even like prepared for the show. I was just kind of sitting here, like, and I think he said to me, "Yo, I'm over here," and I was just like, my head was down. It was bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so summer 2023 hits. We're gonna have them on the bottom here. So Barbie has to be talked about because it is the first billion-dollar movie that's been made by a female by herself. We've had massive hits from female directors. including Wonder Woman, of course, but nothing's hit the $1 billion mark. Barbie is the movie of the summer. It's the event movie of the summer. It's crossed generations. It's crossed quadrants. It's a 5-quadrant film right now. And it is the interesting thing about it is Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig are people that Rich and I have seen a lot of movies from. They've made a lot of great movies, and they're all low budget, spectacular films, and they're just amazing. She made a great Little Women remake that was fantastic with Saoirse Ronan, a fantastic cast, a wonderful adaptation of that material. Timothée Chalamet, of course, but she's made other movies. She's made really great movies, and so has her husband, who helped write Barbie. But now they're in the $1 billion club.
It's funny because when the first trailer dropped, everybody's like,
the first trailer drop was first trailer
movie?
I was in.
I looked at it and said, look, it's Greta Gerwig, it's Noah Baumbach. I don't know what this movie's going to be, but I know it's not going to be a movie just for little girls.
Right, I know it's not going to be junk. The other
to it, there's going to be something.
And that trailer,
I was drawing parallels.
But that trailer, Rich, that trailer, for anybody who hasn't seen it, I urge you to search it out, because that was the trailer. I think I texted you and said, this Barbie trailer is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Because if you're a fan of Stanley Kubrick and you love 2001: A Space Odyssey like I do, I've seen it in 70 millimeter. I've seen it, I've seen it all over the place. I've seen it a bunch of times when it got re-released. I've seen it twice in theaters then. I'm a huge 2001 fan. The idea that Greta Gerwig in this first trailer completely stole the trailer from 2001 with Barbies and dolls and did almost a shot-for-shot remake, told me off the bat, hey, this movie is going to be special. Okay. Now here's the thing. I have to say this.
$1 billion special.
Well, not $1 billion special. But
that was going to be subversive the way Josie and the Pussycats is subversive. And
but the hits thing also comes up with
box office. But that's okay as long as it's good. I don't give a shit if it makes $10.
But that's also part of this. That's also part of this hit. The hit is that you had two movies, and the other movie we're talking about the most this summer's Oppenheimer. It's a 3-hour movie about the nuclear bomb and the man who created it, right? And what happened as part of this hit?
People thought
but the hit progress on this has to be the meme thing. The meme started very early. The idea that the two studios didn't blink, and sometimes we do have studios blinking. Sometimes studios move things. They didn't blink, and they just rode the wave. Now, I have to be honest. I have not seen either one. I've been stuck at home. I've seen 3 movies in the last 2 months. I'll talk about them as we progress through the night. I've seen Indiana Jones. I've seen Mission Impossible, and I've seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because I have nephews who love the Turtles. Not that I don't love the Turtles too, but those are the 3 I've seen. But this Oppenheimer Barbie thing, the idea that the studios were brave enough to ride this Barbenheimer weekend thing and not blink is part of their hits. Now, the other things we do need to talk about: Guardians of the Galaxy. The rumors of Marvel's demise are vastly overrated. And I think part of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 that gives you this, the reason it's a big hit and the reason it is whatever. Guardians, the original, was not something that people thought was going to be a hit. Once it became a hit, the characters were appropriated by the fans. And the fans fell in love with them. And then they made a second movie, and the fans went in droves to see that one. And this third movie, while darker and certainly, a little bit more, risky, is a great movie. And the idea that Marvel isn't going to hit every time now, which is something we have to talk about. They're not going to hit every time.
No.
But the ones that are going to hit and hit big are the ones where they've already built in the love of the characters. So we had to get to Rocket's past. We had to find out who the new Guardians are going to be because we know we're moving on and we're losing characters, right? Because these actors don't have contracts after this, and we know, so that's the Marvel demise thing. Not every Marvel movie is going to do great as big as they expect anymore. And the ones that do great are going to be ones that people already have their hooks in. And the surprise of the summer, one of the surprises of the summer, the idea that Spider-Man Across the Universe is not a Marvel movie; it's a Sony movie. Sony movies usually are terrible. I'm not going to lie to you; they're usually awful. Craven looks like it's going to be awful, and gosh darn it, they moved it to next year. Shucks.
What a shock.
But what a terrible day. I mean, that's why they call me the Rhino.
I want Sony to pull something together from these Spider-Man characters. I'm rooting for them to succeed, and they keep dropping the ball like this in their live action.
They are finding ways. They are finding ways to take defeat out of the jaws of a rhino. They are finding new and exciting ways to do it. But Spider-Man Across the Universe is not that way. And again, this is one of the things that I think is most shocking about this. It's one of the highest rated grossing films of the summer. But the most interesting thing is, and most people don't know this, but the first movie didn't do that well. It did okay. But once it got to video, it did what I call the Austin Powers effect. It got found on streaming. It got found on DVD. And people fell in love with it. Like a bunch of people saw it, but not a lot of people saw it. And then once it got to streaming and video, everybody saw it. And then that's why the second one did so much better. Now, the problem here is this strike that we're talking about has caused the next one to move completely off the calendar. It was supposed to be for March of 2024. The guys that are making these movies are not going to wait. They're not going to not take their time with them, especially with what they know they have and the possibility that the third one is going to gross $1 billion. That's odd. That's in play for that movie. So, it's been one of the surprises of the summer, but it's also one of the more heartfelt movies of the summer. It's well done. Comments. Let's see.
There was some buzz before the part 3 got moved that they weren't going to be able to make that April date anyways.
Well, Haley Stanfield had made a comment that she hadn't recorded her lines. Yeah, so, whoops. Okay.
But
Joe writes,
that movie surprised me too much.
I saw Barbie. I was not the demographic they were aiming for, and I'm okay with myself for not enjoying it. Opinions may vary. Absolutely. But the funny thing about it is, and this is what I've been talking to Rich about. One of the interesting things as we get older, and when you have a health scare, you really start thinking about your age. But one of the things that as you get older, it's okay for a movie to not be for us. And I'm probably going to go see Barbie and enjoy it because I like Baumbach and I like Gerwig. But what I would say to you is, I've come to the conclusion it is okay for me to not enjoy something, and I can sit back and go, it's not for us. I'll give you a perfect example, Rich, and tell me if I'm wrong on this. Okay. She-Hulk is not the greatest of Marvel shows, but I enjoyed it. And when my wife watched it, she was sitting there going, I love this show. I love everything about this show. And the thing is, if that allows my wife to be able to go to an opening night of a Marvel movie and not hate herself or hate being there, give me it 2 times. Now,
I enjoy seeking out movies that aren't aimed at my,
demographic.
White
the idea that you're
demo.
The idea that you're stealing life from other places, and that's the truth. Part of being a movie fan is falling in love with things that might not be for you, and it's okay if you don't, and it's okay if you do.
Because you'll open up your mind to being empathetic with other people's point of views, which is a lot of what the movies are about, anyways.
Barbenheimer. Barbenheimer is the word of the summer.
Yes. As I sat in Barbie next to my good friend Natasha, who's been on the show and will be back again soon. There's
Sometime in the
there's a
future.
moment in Barbie where someone says, it gives a short little speech thing, and she was literally punching the air with her fist, going, "Yes, yes, this exactly." And I mean, it's something I
would say it's the America Ferrara speech,
yeah, the
probably.
American Ferrari
Okay.
speech, yeah. And I mean, it's things that I've been aware of that are things that women have to deal with that guys don't necessarily do, and so I've always tried to modify my behavior so they don't have to have to feel that way around me, hopefully. But
I hate when the construction workers whistle at me.
Yeah,
hate it, Rich.
I know you lovable man, you.
I have gams. What can I say?
But to see that enunciated in a movie, to allow women to be seen that way and to see themselves in these movies, which they don't often get to, I think it's great. I think that's probably why people are going back and seeing this movie over and over again, because of that. And you're dealing with creators who had a very specific vision that spoke to people who don't normally get spoken to in movies. And of course, now that it's earned $1 billion, I am sure the studios are going to take all the wrong lessons and just try to turn out movies about every stupid fucking toy from
Monopoly, the movie.
So, bring
Hungry,
on
Hungry
Slinky,
Hippos.
the movie. Slinky, they're working on
Slinky
it.
could be great. What goes down? I don't know. So Tim writes Barbenheimer, Word of the Summer, and then Ken writes, I like horror and watched Insidious Red Door and thought it sucked. Yeah, let me give you help on this one. I heard mixed. The other thing is we're talking about a fourth sequel of a pretty great original film. What I would also say to you, Ken, and this is what I've been hearing about and everybody's kind of talking about, don't work on Insidious. Go check out Talk to Me, which is an A24 horror film that's apparently one of the more creative horror films of the year. So don't always try to go to sequels for stuff. And there's a reason why. And that, first off, before we go on to misses, and there have been misses, and we're going to talk why some things are misses and why they're not. We do have to, as a movie show, talk about for a moment about Sound of Freedom. Now, here's the thing. I haven't seen it. Rich, you haven't seen it, and you're a film critic. Can you let everybody know why you haven't seen it as a film critic? Because the media tells me that film critics are trying to keep everyone away from it. So can you give me a handle on why, as a film critic, you haven't seen Sound of Freedom?
Most people, when they have a movie to bring out, like you're a studio, you're an indie distributor, what have you, you set up screenings for critics at the least in New York and Los Angeles. And, for some of the larger cities, hopefully like Chicago, Philadelphia, where I go for all of my screenings, Atlanta, Dallas, a couple of other places, Boston. The Angel Studios, who brought out Sound of Freedom, as far as, we were able to determine, Philadelphia, nobody in Philadelphia was offered the movie in terms of either in an on-location screening, or sometimes if you're a really small movie and you're trying to get some word out, you'll just email blast out everybody with a link, and say, hey, if you're interested, we have a link, to
if you give us a review, you can watch it.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to be watching the Alex Winter YouTube documentary later on this evening after we're done here on a Vimeo link. And so
you weren't given that opportunity.
Other people that I know have asked their critic friends in other cities, and they haven't said, this movie hasn't been offered out to critics, or at least a majority of critics.
So
now,
that's
they may have given it out to somebody at Breitbart
or at Variety. Variety had a review, but that was, I think, Variety just going to the theater and seeing it.
Yeah.
What I want to say,
a friend of mine from the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle also reviewed it, but he reviewed it 5-6 days into its run because we didn't get it. We didn't get it offered as a
early
screener.
enough.
Just said okay.
So I think
and
that's
then
an interesting.
Tuesday went and saw it on his own, paid for it out of his own.
I think
pocket.
that's an interesting thing where the marketing has said critics, this is the movie that critics don't want you to see. So we've ended that. The other thing I want to talk about a little bit is
that turns me off to wanting to see your movie, to be frank.
Also, well, and the other thing I want to talk about is
lying. You're lying to it's a lie, and it's a bit of red meat that you're trying to throw to a certain political group.
The other thing I want to talk about is the Angel Studios. Where I'm going to get you off this. Let's because again, I don't want to be controversial. I'm just trying to let you know this Angel Studios is very famous for being the company is actually something that broke off from a video distribution company that you could send your tapes to in the 80s and 90s and take out all the nasty rated R parts. That's where this studio started. And the other thing that is kind of disingenuous, this movie's made over $150 million. Great. There's two things that have been floating around about the controversy surrounding it, and the idea that people are like AMC theaters isn't allowing it to be screened. Because I bought a ticket and I went in and there are all these seats and the theater said it was sold out. This is a two-prone problem. There's a pay-it-forward system with this movie. It is a pay-it-forward where at the end of the movie, Jim Caviezel asks you to buy tickets for people to see it and they will get free tickets to people. That does not necessarily mean people are seeing the film. Right? Because what has happened is you've seen TikTok posts and different things where people are like, I want to get my friends in to see this movie today, and AMC says the theater sold out, but there's nobody in the seats. Well, that's Angel Studios buying up all the seats for that particular showtime. And the other thing I want to mention about this Pay It Forward program, $150 million, it's outgrossed some movies and it's done better. It only cost $17 million to acquire from Disney, from a Disney trash heap that 20th Century Fox had made the movie. One thing I do want to point out is this Pay It Forward program has a very specific thing in it. When you buy these tickets, you never get the money back. So whatever money is left over after this film leaves theaters all over the world goes into the coffers. All of the monies that you've done with the Pay It Forward program, the money goes into Angel Studios and their next movie. So what they've done is they've made this big hit. They've made a counterculture, controversial kind of like summer smash that is for political purposes and whatever. And I'm all for that. We have liberal movies all the time. There are right-wing films all the time. But what I'm saying to you is this one screams to me, and it's just a personal thing because I'm from the movie business and I've worked in theaters and I know how percentages work and I know how everything works. This one screams to me Ponzi scheme. This one screams to me that if you buy tickets after the movie and they say we're going to give them the free to somebody, and then whatever money's left over from that program, that Pay It Forward program, goes directly into the Angel Studios coffers. That's not how movies become hits. And also, just because at 150 million in tickets sold does not nearly mean that the same amount of people that spent $150 million on Spider-Verse or $150 million in Guardians or Oppenheimer or Barbie, the same number of people saw the movie.
Yeah.
So I put a question mark there. It is one of the hits of the summer. It is something that Hollywood is talking about. But I want to let you know there are questions. There are questions to this hit. And if I see one more person say, it's going to outgross Indiana Jones and Tom Cruise, great. But please understand that Indiana Jones and Tom Cruise are not on the screen afterwards asking you to buy tickets for the next patrons to see it. And that the money is going to go to Tom Cruise or Indiana Jones or Harrison Ford. And that money goes right into their pockets.
Yeah.
So that is my TED Talk for today. And also the idea that the studio comes from a place where it was a studio that got sued out of existence for censorship in the 90s. So please watch and please be careful with proclaiming things hits that are maybe not hits. Okay,
True.
that's our TED talk for that.
I know. Well, I wanted to kind of shift and talk to monopolize the mic here a little bit, because while you were unfortunately convalescing, I had some free time. I once again did went to Blobfest last
Yes.
month in Phoenixville, outside of Philadelphia. If you don't know what Blobfest is, well,
You
if
should.
you've seen the 1958 movie The Blob, you've seen the Colonial Theater. It's the theater that the Blob attacks in the movie. And I've been going to Blobfest since about 2003 or 4. I've lost track, but it's been 20 years. I've been going every single year. And you see the Blob
cool
on
time.
a big screen.
It's really cool.
There's a street fair with vendors. I bought a lot of DVDs. And also
buy digital media, people.
Yep. This year they always program some double features, and this year the theme of Blobfest was Universal Monsters. So I got to see Bride of Frankenstein on the big screen. I saw Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein on a big screen. Beautiful, beautiful prints. Lovely. And then I was back in Phoenixville the following weekend for Noir City with Eddie Muller, Turner Classic Movie host of Noir Alley there. And his Film Noir Foundation does every January a big film noir festival in San Francisco. And then he kind of takes it on.
For those who watch the show and don't know what film noir is, it is a French term, black film. The black film.
Yes.
Dark,
gritty,
underbelly.
Bad people.
Dirty underbelly.
Yeah,
bad people, femme fatales.
Post-war film movement where, America's kind of disillusioned with, things. They understand that life exists in a lot grayer arena than just simple good guys, bad guys.
You said Blobfest also had the Blob remake this year, which
yes, that's right.
Is highly underrated as a remake.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I didn't get to see all 10 films that they showed that weekend for Noir City. I did see 2. I saw 4 altogether. 2 that I really want to recommend. A third I'm not even going to mention because I didn't like it all that much. And also Lady from Shanghai, which is Orson Welles' film, which he shot to be like 110 minutes long, and then the studio cut it down to 85 minutes. It's a hot mess, but it kind of works on like a dreamlike level.
Orson Welles did not have good luck with not getting cut by studios.
No, he did not. But the 2 movies I saw, one was called Woman on the Run with Ann Sheridan and Dennis O'Keefe. And this is a movie that the Film Noir Foundation had been able to save years ago. There was like one 35 millimeter print left in the world. They
That's
found
not
it.
good.
They screened it, and then it was accidentally destroyed in a fire. But before it was destroyed in that fire, Eddie Muller had made a digital dupe of it. And then when a 16 millimeter print of it was found in England without the audio, they had the audio to match up from his digital dupe, and now it's available for everybody to see.
That's fantastic. That is great. That is great.
And it's a great film too. It's really good. Like I said, Ann Sheridan, Dennis O'Keefe is in it. It's fantastic. Shot in San Francisco, all location work. It's really beautiful.
Well, and the heyday of the film noir in the 50s was just the top of the like so good.
Yeah, this is double featured with Lady from Shanghai. And they both end on a San Francisco amusement park pier. So that was kind of a fun way they intersected. And there's some stuff that happens on a roller coaster that really holds up well, even now, today. And then the other movie I really liked was Larceny, which was about some con men, John Payne, Joan Caulfield, Dan Duryea, who's in like
Dan Duryea.
Yeah, the guy's in like every
famous northeastern Pennsylvanian.
No, he's in like every third film noir film. He's a great great villain.
Yes, he is. He's very much a Kevin Bacon of film noir.
And also a young, very svelte, very hot, very Shelley Winters is in this movie. It's Larceny. It's 1948, and the script by the script was kind of punched up by one of the RKO writers, William Bowers, and he's known for making things really funny and witty. So this movie slings a lot of fun bon mots back and forth, including one towards the end where a woman character is menacing somebody with a gun after having shot somebody else, and she goes, "I can't remember how many bullets I still have left in here. It's been a while since I murdered my mother." And I was just like, "Wait, what? That's a whole thing." And they don't go into
that
it
is
all.
a matricide, made in heaven.
Oh, it was a great moment. And that one is available on DVD. Kino Lorber has a great DVD out.
I just did a Shelley Winters. I did a Shelley Winters film noir too.
Mm-hmm.
I just did a Shelley Winters film noir myself. I recently revisited The Night of the Hunter.
Fantastic!
Robert Mitchum.
Yeah. Charles Laughton directed that.
The only film he ever directed, Charles Laughton.
It's because
one of Lillian Gish. Yeah, Lillian Gish.
And he got discouraged, and he decided never to direct again, which is
also if you're a fan of knuckle tattoos. Every movie that came after The Night of the Hunter that had knuckle tattoos, it all starts with Robert Mitchum with the love and hate on his fist. So Rocky Horror, Cape Fear, all of them owe a lot to Robert Mitchum in The Night of the Hunter. He plays an evil preacher. Well, he's not really a preacher, but plays an evil preacher, and he's out chasing two kids looking for money. And Shelley Winters is very much a young, super attractive, wonderful Shelley Winters. That sounds like a great summer. I'm sorry I missed out on those.
Yeah,
we did have,
like I said, Larceny is available on DVD. Woman on the Run is available on Blu-ray from the Film Noir Foundation. They have a number of films that they've restored available through their website, and of course, all the money goes towards future restoration work. So obviously, I'm gonna champion that. I'm friends with one of the programmers at the Colonial, and when he first told me that they were having Noir City the week after Blobfest, I was like, "Bob, I'm already broke from Blobfest every year. Why are you doing this to me?"
He's like, "We're trying to steal your money."
Yeah, no kidding. Noir. I'm like, I am staying home and going nowhere until New York Comic Con in October.
So a couple things I do want to do a quick before we get to the misses, and we'll talk about the misses in a second of the summer. And although Rich seems like he had nothing but hits this summer, we do have to do a quick in memoriam. I came up with this. People we've lost this summer that we didn't really get a chance to talk about. Gordon Lightfoot, one of the great singer-songwriters. Tina Turner, Tony Bennett, Sinead O'Connor. All incredible. You have a wonderful thing on Film Buff Online about Sinead O'Connor and the moment she was on Saturday Night Live, and she got basically her entire life and career changed because of it when she ripped the Picture of the Pope apart. You have a wonderful article about the fact that the night that happened, all of the world fell down on her, but the whole point of the ripping the thing in protest was to signal about her Irish upbringing, about the abuse that her mother was inspired by the church and all the sexual abuse that occurred in her Irish town.
Yeah. She was about 10 years early on calling out the Catholic Church for
being terrible sexual predators and
hiding
violence
stuff instead of confronting it. Yes. It's a shame that she had to go through that. There's also a great documentary called Nothing Compares, which came out about 2 years ago, I think it was, from Sundance.
But it's an incredible article.
Great documentary about Sinead O'Connor and deals a lot with this stuff as well. Gordon
Lightfoot. But she's one of the people. She's one of the most impactful superstars we lost this summer. Obviously, Tina Turner, Tony Bennett was around forever. You know what I mean? And
What's
Gordon
funny
Lightfoot.
is when I went to do for the Film Buff online Facebook page to do the Tony Bennett memorial post, I was looking at his IMDb. Outside of the movie The Oscar, he very, very, very rarely
Stayed away from movies.
does anything but himself.
But Tony Bennett, yeah.
I think 90% of
Very-
his IMDb is him appearing in The Muppets as himself, on a sitcom as himself, in a drama as himself.
Tony Bennett as himself, because he was a character. So it's it. But again, it's a great loss. We also had some very big losses this summer, movie wise, and movie and television. We didn't get to talk to. Oh, I misspelled it. Hold on. Treat Williams. It's not Williams. Treat Williams obviously passed away in a motorcycle accident. A terrible tragedy. He was one of the great actors from the 70s and 80s that was and later became a major television star. With shows that touched a lot of people in the aughts. Glenda Jackson, one of the great female actresses. Julian Sands, we lost in a terrible hiking accident, but they finally found him.
Terrible. Yeah.
Alan Arkin, Paul Rubens, Angus Cloud, who was recently in the show on HBO, and the two I really want to focus on. I love Paul Rubens to death, and I know there's a lot of controversy about Paul Rubens or whatever. But what I would say to you is there's very few people working comics who start a character in the Groundlings that becomes so important that it transcends both children's television, movies, generations, and the stories you heard about Paul Rubens after he passed, that he would call everyone he knew on their birthdays every year. And
then just throughout the whole day, send them memes,
funny
and
memes and pictures and jokes.
And this wasn't just like actors and directors he dealt with. I'm on a couple below the line crew groups on Facebook, and there was like stories from I was a second assistant director on this thing that Paul Rubens was on, and we hung out for 20 minutes while he was waiting for a pizza to show up or something. Yeah, it was, and we just had a nice conversation. And then every year after that, till I would get.
Well, also he was in other things. He has an absolutely killer cameo in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original movie, not the TV show. It is a bang up. It is probably the best part of the movie, to be honest. And I want to say I miss him terribly. Also, the idea that the show was one of the most invigorating. I watched it every Saturday morning. Cherry and Billy the puppet and Penny and all the things that I used to watch. And I feel it shapes me as a person. And I feel like we're going to look at it 20 years from now and be like, what a genius. And the idea that he kind of just, got wrapped up in stupid things and people freaked out for the wrong reasons. I just want to say it. Now, we also today, this is the one that I had to add, we lost William Friedkin today. And here's the thing. William Friedkin is forever going to be remembered for The Exorcist. But I want to implore you, as a film historian along with Rich, he has other movies. And
oh my God, The French Connection.
The French Connection, sure. Sorcerer is one of the greatest movies you will ever see. It is tension from beginning to end. And one from the 80s that I remember seeing and just falling in love with. And it's got a manic personality. But I got to tell you, to live and die in LA about counterfeiters and people, it's got Willem Dafoe. It's just this wonderfully weird thriller about counterfeiters in LA. That is,
I'm sure
it was a great movie.
That I'm about to mention is probably considered one of his lesser films, but it does kind of have a warm space in my heart because of this. The Brinks Job with
it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah,
it's kind of a comedy piece. It's funny.
I saw it with my parents, Now, my parents were not big fans of bad language. And despite this movie being it was a late 70s, early 80s PG.
It's PG, so
lots of
anything goes. Anything
F-bombs
goes,
in it.
baby.
Yeah.
Could get
And
it. Could have got a
my
booby too as well.
Mom wanted to see it because the Brinks job is based on an actual armed car robbery from Boston from the 50s when my mom was growing up, just a little south in Rhode Island.
It was a real time. It was a real.
So she wanted. Oh, I know this story. I want to go see the movie. And for whatever reason, my parents brought me along. None of my other brothers went to this, as far as I can recall. But I remember going to this, and I'm hearing a lot of language. And then I got the talk to on the drive home about never using those words. Well, that didn't stick. But I did enjoy the movie, and I've gone back to it a couple of times since then. And I think it's a charming little funny caper movie. And
he was a great director. He will always forever be emblazoned with The Exorcist because he created a horror film that not only stands the test of time, but is also like a guardian, a wall guardian for people who are entering the horror realm. Like you don't actually become a true horror fan until you see The Exorcist and respond to The Exorcist, and how badly The Exorcist ruins you. But he was a fantastic filmmaker.
Oh yeah,
it is a big loss, and he was just one of the overall best that we had. We're gonna finish up really quick. I know we're at 101, and we said we're not going to go over an hour, but we're talking. I want to do a quick look at the misses for summer 2023, and then we will tell you what we have in plans for the next set of our themes that we do on our show. Okay, so misses. Let's go through it. Haunted Mansion, obviously, and I want to preface this: these are misses, not because they didn't necessarily find an audience, but their budgets were insane. And I have a question mark behind Elemental, but let's talk about the Haunted Mansion. Disney's had a rough summer. They have a failure, a little bit of a failure with budget and total gross worldwide with The Little Mermaid, the Haunted Mansion. So they're a little bit off. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I'm gonna shock people here. I saw it. It's one of the only movies I've seen this summer, late this summer. I loved it. I will tell you that one of the things that I would say about it, and I think the attack on it is just this weird, wonky thing. Because midway through, I kept on looking at the person I was seeing it with, and I'm like, I don't know what the problem is. This is an Indiana Jones movie. It's exactly what I expected. Again, more chases, but he can't do the physical stuff anymore. So you got to put him in different places. The last half hour, a little bit off the wall, but I would say there are moments near the end of the movie that are so touching and bittersweet and outright emotionally shocking. The idea that Shia LaBeouf is not in the movie and we find out why, and it's just, I didn't hate it, and I really liked it, and I will fight with people when we get there about why I think it's an Indiana Jones movie. Another movie that kind of is being considered a failure, which is, and again, these are because of budgets. Destiny cost about $300 million before they did marketing. Mission Impossible 7: Dead Reckoning Part 1 considered a miss because it cost $300 million to make. But if you went to see the movie, it's one of the best goddamn movies of the summer. So
it's fantastic.
It's great.
Paramount made a mistake.
A tactical error.
Yes, they opened up too close to Barbie and Oppenheimer. And
right, and it was a twofold problem.
That weekend, Nolan wasn't going to move because he always opens his movies right at that time. Tom Cruise didn't want to move because, he's Tom Cruise, and he always opens up a Mission Impossible movie right around that weekend. And
I think if he had opened, I'm not going to lie, if he'd opened Mission Impossible in May, we'd be talking about Mission Impossible as one of the bigger movies of the summer. But because it was a twofold problem, the Barbenheimer thing was huge, but it wasn't just huge because of the drive to see Barbenheimer. It was also huge because for the first time in Tom Cruise's illustrious career, he lost the big screens. He lost IMAX. He lost Adobe screens. He lost all the screens that cost a little bit more to see, and he lost them to Oppenheimer and Barbie. And once that happened, Dead Reckoning was in trouble. Now, Fast X, here's a funny thing. Everybody's going to say it bombed, it didn't do well. It's law of diminishing returns, sure. But then you look up and it grossed 140 million here, but it grossed 500 million worldwide. So it's law of diminishing returns. But when we talk about these movies being misses, it's because of budget or because of expectation. It's rarely because of how good the movie is or whatever. A Fast X is by no means a good movie and not in the same class as Dead Reckoning or Indie or Elemental or any of the other movies we're talking about here. But what I would say is it's really funny. We're talking about a movie that grossed $640 million worldwide, and we're calling it a miss. I'm at a loss for this ridiculousness. The other one I want to talk about really quick, and again because we're over time, Elemental started out as what they were calling a Pixar tanker, but if you look real close, as the summer has progressed, there haven't been any kids films except for this weekend when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles opened. Elemental has kind of crawled out of the miss. So it was called a miss early in the summer. You may think it's a miss. But when we get done, and by the time Elemental ends and hits screening and DVDs and Blu-ray and 4K, Elemental will end up being a hit and not being a miss. So
True.
just something to think about. I think the big story...
I'm looking at the numbers for Elemental right now. Movie costs $200 million to make, which is a hell of a lot for an animated film.
Lots, especially when you consider Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles costs $70 to make.
Wow. Opening weekend for Elemental was $29.6 million. Right now, domestically, it's at $148 million. So that's 5 times what it opened at, just about.
Inching.
And adding in the international box office, its worldwide total is $423.8 million. So it's almost at a break-even point just now. But like you said,
it's inching up.
Mm-hmm. And if people,
but like I said, the funny thing about that, the talk was that it was a miss. And so what I want to say when you see these,
it would have been a bigger hit. It would have been a bigger hit though if people weren't like trained to expect Pixar to just show up on Disney Plus 3 weeks later. And that's Bob Chapek's
right. And that's Bob Chapek's fault.
I mean, partially COVID, because
but also
and stuff like that. But
also because the $29 million opening weekend, people were programmed that it was a miss, and once they were programmed it was a miss, it became a miss. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think the big thing from the misses that we have on this list, it's the end of a road for male-orientated action films. You got to do something special, to break the mold, right? You got to find something new. And I think it, even though Guardians did very well, I think the interesting takeaway from Marvel and Guardians is that they've got to be characters we care about. We didn't care about Ant-Man as much. Also, you took the formula from the Ant-Man movies, which were all funny, kind of heisty movies, and you made this big. Marvel's got to be careful with what they plug and play. And speaking of plugging and playing, Rich and I are going to plug and play. We are going to have a blast for the end of. Now that I'm back, we're going to get back to everything next year. Oh, we got some comments. Hold on. Okay, 5 comments. Let's see. Let's go through. Shelly. First off, Blobfest. JW and I are going to hang out with Nick Benson in September at Phantasm. Super excited about that. He did the visual effects for the new Blob. Tim Snyder writes, Shelley Winters will also in A Place in the Sun. Shelley Winters is a fantastic actress, by the way, just so we're clear. And also Shelley Winters in The Poseidon Adventure, one of the great performances in a disaster epic. Glenda Jackson taught acting classes at the University of Scranton in the early 80s. Yes, she did. I've heard about those. I think she was also at Farley's a lot, which is a bar that was in Scranton. Rich, regarding some more, does a version of a Double Indemnity with Fred McMurray's gas chamber scene exist? Photos exist online.
Not that I've ever seen. If memory serves, the footage no longer exists. They shot it and then didn't use it.
And the Hays Code was very specific about it, wasn't it? Wasn't that one of the ones where it's like, it's gone too far? This movie's gone too far.
Yeah. But they kind of do a comedic riff on this gas chamber scene in Robert Altman's The Player. And if you've seen it, you probably know the movie and you know what I'm talking about. If not, I would just recommend, if you like stories about Hollywood, especially satirical stories about Hollywood, check out Robert Altman's The Player from the mid-90s. But as far as the Double Indemnity, I've never seen the footage.
We can do some research on it
anymore, because I really think at some point they would have gotten that out if they
I seem to recall a story about the Hays Code when they would really, really hate things that were in a movie. They would make the studios destroy them. They would get in their grill and be like, this is too far. The American public can't take it. Look where we are now. Jesus. Let's see. Ken writes, Asteroid City failed big time, but only has a $25 million budget. Actors must have worked for free. Here's the thing. That's, his failures are another, like, one of those, like, we're going to find that movie. Somebody, if you're a fan of his work, you're going to find that movie. And also actors are lining up to work with him. So, yeah.
I would say it was a financial failure. I think Asteroid City was one of Anderson's better films. And
because he's a very acquired taste.
Yeah.
He's a very acquired taste.
And actors will say, okay, I'll work, at scale just to be in a Wes Anderson film.
He's one of the rare directors that requires that has that cachet. He has the ability to do that.
Yeah. Somebody like, some of the people in this movie, like Tom Hanks, who normally, I don't know what Tom Hanks's quote is, but it's probably very close to the entire budget of Asteroid City. And he'll be just like, you know what? I want to work with this guy.
And, scale and some back end profit.
Yeah, there might have been some back end.
Also, I read an interesting story. Speaking about this really quick, I think it was a story in Variety about Spielberg and working with Spielberg. So very much like Wes Anderson, right? The cachet of working with Spielberg or whatever. Like Tom Hanks, the initial budget for Saving Private Ryan could not afford Tom Hanks. When Spielberg went and said, I want you in this movie, let's talk. I need you to take your pay down and take back end, and you're still going to make the money back. Trust me. And when Steven Spielberg or a director with cachet says that, you do it. And it turns out that Tom Hanks made a lot of money on Saving Private Ryan. No shock here, right? So, plus the experience of being in one of the greatest war films ever made. But let's not talk about war films. Let's talk about something Rich and I are looking at starting next week. And we're going to go August 7th, August 14th, August 21st.
No, today's the 7th, so 14th.
Oh, sorry. August 14th. Rich, give me a break. I'm just back.
I know.
14th. I can barely walk at this point. 14th, 21st, 28th. We're 3 weeks in a row that we're going to take a week off for Labor Day so Rich and I can celebrate and drink. But we're going to do 2 more into September.
3 more.
3 more in September. We got 6 total, right?
6 total titles.
And we're calling this 80s teen revisits. We're going to go back and look at some teen movies, and we're going to do them in the order they were released, with the idea that you're going to see how things start in the 80s, how things progress in the 80s, and we're going to end with a movie from a comedy from the 80s that kind of turns the teen comedy / romantic comedy on its head a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you the first title tonight. The movie we'll be doing next week on August 14th is the Bob.
Joe's got it. Joe's already guessed.
Yeah, Joe's already guessed. We're doing Porky's next week. So we're going to do Porky's. We're going to look at 80s teen comedies. We're going to go through the 80s, and then we're going to end with an 80s movie that kind of turns everything on its head. And it's just something Rich and I feel we can dig at. Now, another thing we can talk about really quickly for October, we've thought about this. We've done a lot of horror films. We've done whatever. But one of the things that Rich and I both love, and we don't think it gets enough credit, and we want to do like a series on it. We're going to do about 4 or 5 of the movies. We are going to do for this October, we're going to do a look at Hammer horror films. So we're going to pick 5 really well done Hammer horror films, which is one of the estimable, like the best British horror films from the 60s and 70s. And we're going to do 5 of them for the month of October and the end of September. And then we have all kinds of things planned for the end of the year. But that's where we're headed. We're going to do 80s teen comedies, and then we're going to shift really quick and do 70s Hammer horror films. Because Rich and I were discussing it, Hammer horror is basically where we kind of fell in love with horror films. They're the movies my dad showed. And also, can I just say it? Hammer horror films have the best blood in any horror film. The blood is amazing. The blood's incredible. It's awesome.
I'm not even
and wonderful.
Kind of a guy, but man, do I love when they start splashing the red around in a Hammer movie.
And Joe says Hammer, yes, too cool. And then Peter Cushing, always a go-to with Hammer films. Yes, the together, Peter Cushing and
Christopher Lee
together, they create one of the best Dracula Von Helsing things going. And so we're super excited, and I'm glad to be back. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us. Sorry I haven't been here, but there was nothing I can do. Rich, where can people find you if they're so inclined to look for you?
Okay. Amazingly, it hasn't collapsed yet. I'm on Twitter, X, whatever the hell that Yo-Yo wants to call it this week. You can find me there talking about movies. And
next week it'll be why.
Yes. Who knows?
Why? Just why?
Because third base. And I can be found there under the moniker of @FilmBuffRich. All of my writing is at filmbuffonline.com. JW mentioned my piece about Sinead O'Connor.
Film Buff Online stuff has been tremendous. It's actually kept me sane as I've been laid up. So I appreciate
we just dropped the first article, the first installment of a new semi-recurring feature called Failed Pilot Theater, where we take a look at television pilots that were made or at least got through the scripting stage, but never got picked up and turned into a series.
Yes, and we wouldn't have had Barbie without it. No
Exactly.
Barbie if the pilot had gotten picked up. Greta Gerwig would be finding about How I Met Your Father.
Yeah, well, it was the first attempt at a spinoff from How I Met Your Mother called How I Met Your Dad. It's with Greta Gerwig in the lead. If that had been picked up, she never would have gone on to her directing career. I don't see
and find her husband and all kinds of stuff. It could have changed the world. Could have spun the world off its axis in 2023. But a lot of good stuff on
filmbuff.com. The other podcast that I do with my very good friend Natasha Bogutsky is on hiatus until September. We're starting to make our plans now to bring that back in a couple of weeks. So more on that in the future. Also, I can be heard on most episodes of the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle podcast, The Film Scribes, but not the most recent one because I didn't get out to the screenings before they recorded. And you can find Film Buff Online also on Facebook, where in addition to links to the stories that we publish on the main site, we also have like short news updates when somebody passes. And we also like to have every day 3 or 4 bits of on this day in film history kind of little posts.
Great stuff.
Yeah, thank you. So, besides that,
was a lot. So I'm on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the Facebook as JW the Movie Guy. You can find me here every Monday night with Rich, unless I have a health scare. You can also find me on Tuesday nights on Loud and Nerdy, which was our original flagship podcast. I thank everybody for sticking with us, and I thank everybody for showing up tonight. We appreciate it. Christopher Lee, Ken McKernan, I couldn't get the name out. Ken, I'm sorry. it's like riding a bike, but sometimes you fall when you're riding a bike. I want to thank everybody for paying it. God.
I want to thank everybody for sending all those good wishes and everything JW's way, because my Monday nights are this, and I enjoy it. I love it. I love getting to talk with him. And
I love talking to you too.
The last several weeks, I mean, I would call you a couple of times during the week, and like we'll talk for like a half an hour. And I'm like, we're doing mini shows already. It felt like,
yeah, it was, but it was more like, it was really funny. I was telling you, it was like part of the final instrumental process of being able to set up and do everything that I move around a little bit, and so I've been late. I was doing the phone calls with you on my back, which was not the best place to see me on a Monday night. So we're back. We'll be back next week. Next week is Porky's. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you. I want to thank everybody at the Indie Escape Network, all the hosts and co-hosts and producers we have at the wonderful Indie Escape Network. Thank you. Have a great night. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Porky's in the crosshairs. Bye.